Welcome to Crash Course in Commercial Real Estate. We converted our in-house training program to a podcast to teach you prospecting, negotiation, business planning, and other fundamental skills to become a successful commercial real estate agent. And now, here's your host, Brady Collier.
All right, welcome back to Prospecting. This is video number 2. I'm here with Shannon and Kyle, and we're going to keep rolling. Okay, Kyle, so we just talked about the target groups, starting with the warmer groups, which you're going to go through those warm groups within your first 2 or 3 weeks. That'll probably shape the real estate needs that you're going to prospect around for the next several weeks or maybe the rest of your career. Maybe you call on one guy, he's like, I just hold a business, I need to invest all this money, I love commercial real estate, find me some deals. That may shape the next 5 years of your business. So as Kyle said, it's an amazing business because you never know where your prospecting is going to take you. It's exciting because it's a launch point to wonderful paths. So Kyle, now I want to talk to you about several things. And the first one is providing value on the call, the goal of each prospecting, and the prospecting list, like the pre-call research. So in those, let's take providing value first. No, I'm sorry. Let's take the prospecting list first, because you have to determine who your list that you're calling to know what the valuable things you're going to provide. So just hypothetical, let's just run with what I just said. You have a friend that you call from your social network. I'm in the commercial real estate business. Just call and see if you have any commercial real estate needs. Oh, actually, yeah, I've been looking to invest $1 million. And you're like, wow, that friend had $1 million to invest? Yes, they did. Say, okay, wonderful. What type of asset are you looking for? You're going to ask a lot of questions, and then you're going to start a list that you're going to prospect on. And that list is going to be the people you're calling. You're going to go through LoopNet. You're going to look at the properties that are available. You're going to call on the brokers. You're going to say, okay, they actually want to invest that money in Southwest Lubbock in this type of deal. So you're going to identify those deals, and you're actually going to write out your list, Excel, whatever it may be, and you're going to do pre-call research to determine who are the people you should call to fulfill whatever need. And the one thing I want to tell you is when you think of prospecting, you just sit there and think of dialing for dollars. And you were shocked the other day when I told you that Chase and Joe, Bo, those guys average 150 calls a week of outgoing prospecting on new clients. But the real shocking thing is not 150 calls. It's the amount of time it takes to build the list for the 150 calls. It's absolutely staggering. Wouldn't you agree? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because you have to determine, across every product segment, there's a different list to be built. So what are the types of lists that you would build? And you employ people now who build those prospecting lists for you. But in your business, what is that? Who are the types of people you would be calling on?
Yeah, I mean, once a need is established, I'm calling landlords that have space that is a fit for my tenant. And so that's going to be a lot of times active listings where you might be calling brokers. Other times it's just calling landlords that own shopping centers that have space to accommodate. And when you're doing that, you call for a specific need, especially early on, and this is key. But when you build that list, the example Brady used, client has $1 million, you're looking at asset sizes in that range that could be around that price, or maybe they could leverage up to more. So you're calling all these landlords. And as you're having these conversations with these investors, landlords, property owners, you're finding out their needs. And then your call list and who you're calling and why you're calling is growing. So you called somebody to see if they're willing to sell. No, I don't sell anything, but I want to buy this. I have this much money to place. And now you've got 2 people. And so you're constantly putting together these puzzle pieces as you call. Your prospect list and who you can call grows because you have more needs that you're trying to fulfill.
So in my career as a multifamily broker, the broker who trained me, he says, there's 450 apartments in Lubbock that we would like to sell. They're owned by around 200 different owners. Call them and see who's willing to sell. So I call, and of 200 owners, guess how many are willing to sell? 5. But guess how many of those guys are willing to buy another apartment complex if it makes sense? Well, they bought one. They've enjoyed owning it. They're making great cash flow. And so I call
of them.
What?
All of them. They all have different criteria, but all of them
Almost
are
all
willing
of
to
them.
buy. Yeah.
Almost all of them. I call and say, hey, I'd like to see if you would sell your apartment complex, Hunter's Way on the South Loop in Lubbock. No, I love that. I just refinanced it, put new debt on it. I'm going to hold it. Say, well, I got a buyer who's looking for da-da-da-da. He goes, well, that's the same thing I'm looking for. Really? You'd like to buy another? Yeah, but I don't want it in Lubbock. I already got a property in Lubbock, but I'd buy something in Amarillo. Okay, well, what about a property? And then you just start drilling in. And so you went from one real need with a real buyer. Now you have two real buyers. So you call the next guy. Hey, I'm representing several buyers who are looking to buy apartments in Lubbock. Would you be willing to sell? And after you call about 30 of them, somebody says, anything's for sale for a price. Tell me the price, send me your financials. And then you're off to the races. And what you end up after calling through 200 people is 57 people who want to buy right now, 3 people who will sell. And that's what he said the puzzle pieces. You just start putting that together. But some of these buyers won't buy that. So you end up saying, well, would you willing to take it out to the market? And then you get a listing. And you have all these buyers calling on your listing. Now instead of 57 buyers, you have 257 buyers in your database that want to buy that type of asset. And so that's how the whole thing grows on itself. And so your prospecting lists are just built out of that. You call and it just begins to snowball. It grows on itself as you go.
Yeah, and then as you build those relationships, the 250 people that you talk to, and you understand who's willing to sell in the market, you store all that information, and then it could be 2 years down the road where you talk to somebody and it triggers. I mean, it's no longer a 1-to-1 prospecting to deal call ratio. You have all this knowledge from several years of prospecting, and then when you see a need, you know who would be interested in that, and you just have that relationship and you've kept in touch with them, and yeah, so it's just constantly growing. Yeah. And that people don't think of that as prospecting, and in the raw sense, it's probably not, but it's just the nature of our business, and it's how the prospecting snowball builds or grows.
The beginning of your career starts out with a lot of cold calling type of prospecting, and then it builds into deal making. And you're just calling, putting deals together, working between two parties. Okay, so the goal of every call, I said, was the next thing we were going to talk about. Every call, I'm going to tell you your goal of talking to every commercial real estate owner, buyer, tenant, landlord, investor, whichever one of the type of commercial real estate person they are. The goal is to find out what is their next real estate move. So if you call through everybody at your school and just say, because you brought up the school and the church, a list of everybody who's a commercial real estate decision maker, and you said, hey, I'm in the business. I just want to know what is your next anticipated real estate move? I know you own such and such, but do you have anything on the horizon? Because I just want to keep my eyes peeled. So if I see the perfect deal for you, I know to call or to send it your way. And so what's your next real estate move? That's the heart, the essence of the goal of the call is to find out that person's real estate move. Would you agree or add anything to that?
Agree. And to get there, you want to prove yourself an expert or provide some value. Yes. Because how they perceive you, I think, is equally as important as finding out their next need. Because if they don't perceive you to be an expert or someone that provides value, they're never going to take what you bring to them seriously.
Okay, so let's run through different types of real estate just to make it real, and we'll just pick random ones. Let's do triple net broker. If I have several shopping centers we've developed in Lubbock, Texas. If somebody wants to call and get and ask me to sell that to one of their buyers or ask me to list it with them to put it on the market, what is the value that they're always going to bring to me? Like, what's a real value that if I own single, triple net assets that broker could provide for me?
Well, Shannon, this won't help you, but if they were to say, I just sold this in your market at this cap rate. So
I think that does help her because they could say, I just sold this.
Well, that's what I was about to say. You say, this just sold in your market at
right.
this cap rate, and I thought you might be interested to know that.
Hey, a property just like yours sold down the street, and I didn't know if you had heard about it. No, actually, I didn't hear. Oh, okay. Hey, I'd like to email over the information on that, just where you have it, just where you know what your property's worth. Immediate value. Everybody wants to know what is the value of what they own. They're always thinking about that. The reason they bought it is value. And so that's, they want to know that. So on a net lease broker, that's what they're going to do. They're going to have comps. Hey, I see that you're building a Dutch Brothers in Amarillo. There's been 12 Dutch Brothers around the country that have sold. I was just wondering if I could email you a list of the cap rate that they all sold at so you know what your property's worth. Could I send that over to you? And I'm like, okay, I do want to see that list. Yes, you can send it over to me. Aha, they got their little hook in me because now I've agreed that we can start communicating. So they're going to send that list and they're going to call me back the next day. Hey, just want to make sure you've got that list. What did you think about those cap rates? They were pretty aggressive, right? Would you be willing to sell at that cap rate? And they're going to play off of the value they just created in my mind or in my situation. And so that's on a net lease broker. Let's transition to a
bad call. Just to the other side of that coin, and you get triple net investment sales calls often. The bad call is, my name is Kyle. I'm with such and such real estate. Do you have anything you're interested in selling?
That's bad call.
Yeah, and you get calls like that.
I get calls like that all the time. Yeah. And let me tell you a worse call. Hey, this is Joe, and I'm with Marcus and Millichap. I just wanted to call, introduce myself, and tell you a little bit about myself. Let me just be frank, Joe, from Marcus and Millichap. I don't give two hoots about you. You live in Minnesota. We're never going to meet. Why do I care to know more about you? What can you do for me? And that sounds so selfish and egotistical, but that's how every real estate owner, they're busy. They don't have a lot of time. And you may be a very compelling person, but they have lots of very compelling friends. What they really want to know is, why should I stay on the phone with you? And you have to bring a value proposition in early, and you have to state it confidently and pretty strong to keep them on the phone. Okay. So just recapping real quick, the goal is, what is their next real estate move? You're going to know what the types of real estate moves they make through your prospect list. It's going to take hours and hours to build those lists, and it may take you hours of research to get 5 calls done, which is the really staggering thing about our guys doing 150 calls a week, is the amount of work they have to do to prepare for those. Now, some of that's simplified by the database that we've built and bought and added to where they haven't called them for 6 months. So they're just calling through things that we already have the information. You may be starting your list from scratch. So it may be a lot of building the list on the front side, and then provide value. I've already talked about letting your prospecting be driven by real needs and not self-interested. So Kyle, let me ask you about this. When a client gives you valuable information, what do you do? Like, clients are going to give you information on the phone. Yeah, I would buy such and such. I'm not interested in that. What do you do with all of the valuable information that you get when somebody gives it to you on the phone?
Well, you can't remember it all. And that's a flaw of many people. If you come from another area of sales where you either close the deal in that initial contact, that was my experience. So you either close it then, or you're never going to hear from them again, 99% of the time. The difference here is all these decisions, even the most urgent of needs, are probably 30 to 90 days out, and most of them much longer than that. And so having a place like a database, and I know y'all have hit on that in another episode, where you're constantly storing that information, where it pings you 60 days, 90 days out, you can set that reminder to go back and call them in accordance with that need. And you also, in good databases, you have a place where you can store tenant needs, buyer needs, landlord needs. And when you hear of a 3,000 square foot space come available, you have stored some spaces in that database, so you can search it based on.
So I'll take it back to investors. Say you're calling and they say, yeah, I just sold my business, I'd like to invest. You're going to say, well, how much money would you like to invest? Or what type of asset do you want to invest in? And the whole time they're telling you that, you're writing it down or you're typing it into the notes on them, and then you're going to categorize them. John Doe, he's an investor, retail investor, looking to invest $1 million, will use debt, could go up to $4 million, looking to place it within X number of days. And so as you continue to store all of that information, then all you have to do is run a query in your database. When somebody says, yeah, I would sell this asset, I'm actually, at a life stage where I want to clear some assets off. Okay. And you go in and you search for all of your investors by their criteria, and the best real estate situations when you can marry two people without all the work of listing it, taking it to the market. And sometimes they want to list it, get it maximum exposure. That's great. But marrying up parties without the pressure of listings and buyers and all that, that's an ideal scenario. So record it all, but after you get off that call, you write down all that valuable information, and you got to stop and just process and say, what do I know of that would be a really good fit for that person's needs. And that's where creative people, Kyle's have got a creative mind, Grant has a creative mind. When somebody gives them that, they sit back and they think about it and they just let their mind start working. What would be a good fit? Have I seen anything in the last 60 or 90 days? So not only do you search in your database, you search in LoopNet, CoStar, Crexie, but you're also trying to put those deals together in your head. So when you get valuable information, I would say do something with it as soon as possible. How can I make money off of the information that they just gave me? Is that private information, or could I use that valuable information on my next call to make myself more of an expert, so on and so forth? So if they say, well, I've actually already sold that. Oh, cool. What'd you sell it for? Da, 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 da. Okay, Ed Dutch Brothers just sold for so-and-so. Who can I give that valuable information to make money off of it today? So I think that's where the creative mind in your prospecting becomes a really interactive, fun experience.
Yeah, agreed.
Did you have a question? Okay. Let's stop this one here, and then I want to go into let's go to this one. This is my last point for this episode, and then we'll close it out. Scripts, call scripts. This is the balance. Having a script that's great without sounding scripted, because everybody who calls me and sounds scripted, it's a quick no. But I was taught that scripts help you stay on the right course, especially when you're learning. And so, Kyle, we didn't do a ton of calls when you started. Do you find that your calls when you're prospecting fall into the same cadence, where you're asking the same questions, where you're following the same path? Like, they're going to take you off of that when they start answering your questions, and you're just going to pursue but starting those calls, leaving those voicemails, does it become scripted?
It certainly does. And you're talking to someone who's never been good about using a script and really loves to improv and feed off the other person.
Who's also great at improving.
And so you have to know what your skill set are. But if you don't have a script, if you don't have a written script, you still come up with a script in your mind, I guess. And so
the person who trained me says, if you don't use this script, you're going to come up with a script. Your script was just less well thought through than the script I'm trying to give you right now. And so that's how he said, because everybody, after they get in their 10th call, they've seen the 3 things that they liked saying, and they start saying those things on every single call because it sounds good to them. He said, why not just think from the beginning? How do I want the flow of this call? What's my intro going to go like? On voicemails, I guarantee you the voicemails that I get from brokers that are trying to get my business, they're all scripted. They said the same voicemail 1,000 times, and I can tell it. But I think sitting down and thinking through the way you want it to go, picturing the ideal phone call in your mind prior to dialing, I think it's a good practice. And people in sales all over the page on the value of using scripts. There's those gunslingers like Kyle who just happen to be amazing at prospecting on the phone who don't use them. Those people who are more mechanical, and they love going back to it. They've already thought through 5 questions, and they've got a tree of how, if they answer this question this, I'm going to ask them this. If they answer this, I'm going to ask them this. And I'm just going to keep asking questions, and this is going to guide me through the call. So I think there's some wisdom in starting with it, and if you have tremendous success without it, that's great. But
yeah, and
I like it.
And part of your research, and this can be part of formulating your script, but either way, it's formulating where you're going with the call. Is obviously you want to find out their next real estate move, but depending on who they are, what their business is, and what their end goal is, or what your actual need is. Sometimes if I'm calling for a tenant, there's certain things I really need to find out. And so every question I ask is leading that call down a path that they may not know it's going, but I'm trying to get them to that end goal.
Okay. And so whenever you're about to prospect, you're going to come to the office and you're going to say, hey, I'm about to call on these 30 people. Let's just talk through how that's going to go. And I'm going to say, okay, what kind of calls are you making? Let's role play this real quick. You're going to be them. I'm going to call you, and we're going to role play. And then you're going to be you, and I'm going to be them, and I'm going to ask you questions. And that's going to help you think through how the call is going to go before the call goes. And then you can step into the call with a ton more confidence. And as Kyle said, when I said what makes real estate brokers successful, he said confidence. If they just believe in what they're doing, that confidence comes through the phone and the other person buys into it. And that's powerful. So when you identify who you're going to call, come and talk to me. We're going to build the basic flow of how that call should go, set the ideal, and then you'll go work it. All right. That's about 20 minutes. Let's cut that one here, and we'll close out on the next one with a few more thoughts on prospecting. Do you have anything else before we close?
No.
Okay. All right. We'll be right back.